to the Howell's News. I'm Amelia Ford.
And I'm Alice Roncalli. Today's top headlines read: the International Women's Day,
The Zika virus,
the junior doctor crisis,
the refugee story,
the EU referendum,
and the baby gorilla, the first one to have a C-section, born in Bristol Zoo.
Keep watching to find out more.
This is Sadie Evans and Amelia Ford reporting for Howell School.
International Women's Day. March the 8th, 2016 has been another successful year for International Women's Day. This is when supporters worldwide strive for gender equality and celebrate the cultural, political, social and economic achievements of women. We have an interview with Ruby Rees, who attended the first International Women's Day conference in Cardiff. Ruby Rees from Howell School and Up. So Ruby, where did you go on Monday morning?
I went to the International Women's Day conference.
So, at the conference, who inspired you?
Dame Rosemary Butler.
And why?
Because she spoke really well about women's rights in the work and everything.
So, what was the main message at the conference?
To get more people, well, women mostly, into work and male-dominated professions.
Did you enjoy going there and did you learn?
Yeah.
And has it changed your opinion on anything?
Yeah, it made me take more risks in sort of life because otherwise you're not going to get anywhere.
Thank you.
Rosemary Butler, AM, is the Welsh Assembly's pre-sliding officer who organised the conference. She spoke to us earlier.
Well, I hope that the contingent from Howell School did enjoy our experience the other day when you were here in the chamber. I just want to say to you how important it is you realise that you really are fantastic women and you are going to be running the world one day. 50% of the population of Wales is women, and we hold up 50% of the sky. So if we sit down, the sky is going to fall down. So just remember that you are fantastic, that Wales needs you, and really the future of Wales is in your hands. So just remember you can do whatever you choose, and good luck.
Throughout history, in many cultures and religions, women have been seen as less important as men and have often been ill-treated, seen as property or restricted due to this. Some countries even banned girls from an education. It took years of protesting and deaths before women could vote in the UK, and even today, in a small number of places, women cannot vote for their political and religious leaders. There is also a 14% pay gap in the UK between women and their male counterparts. Times have changed. Today more than ever, people appreciate the achievements and rights of women. There is still far more work to be done.
Women are commonly seen as inferior, weaker and less powerful than men. As a result, women commonly choosing more stereotypical jobs such as nursing and teaching. Only 1 in 7 people who work in science and maths is female. We have an interview with Anita Shaw, CEO of TechnoQuest. Introduce yourself and tell us about your role.
Yeah, good morning. My name is Dr. Anita Shaw and I'm the Deputy CEO at TechnoQuest.
Why do you think it is important for girls to study science?
Gosh, it is one of the most important things that girls and boys are equal. It's so important. And there's lots of reasons. One is that science is so exciting, so why wouldn't girls want to do it? Another reason is that there are some fantastic jobs in science, and the economy of our country of Wales is so important to all of our well-being. And so girls should be part of that. Girls should be part of making sure they've got great jobs so that they can be part of the economy of Wales.
So why do you think so few girls do science degrees?
Well, there's lots of reasons. I don't think it starts at the degree side. I think that lots of girls maybe think that science isn't for them earlier on, which is dreadful, really, when science is such an exciting thing. What a privilege to be learning something that maybe someone else has, or to go on to study something that no one else has ever studied before, and to find something new that might benefit all of us. How fantastic. So I don't know I don't know the one reason why girls don't do degrees in science, but there's lots of reasons that maybe girls are turned off science, and it's about probably some girls think that it's not for them. But there's some fantastic roles that girls are already doing brilliantly, that show that it is a role that girls can not only do but really enjoy. Yeah, it's a difficult one. I think there's lots and lots of reasons. but there is no reason at all why girls can't do science and can't be brilliant at science. And that's the most important message, I think, from me about how fantastic it is to do science.
How do you think we can encourage girls to start taking science?
I think one of the things maybe that makes it difficult, not just for girls, but for anybody to think about doing science so that they think about it long term, is that the not actually knowing what jobs there are. So lots of people say they really enjoy science when they're 10 or 11, but then later on, you say to them, well, would you like a career in science? They say, oh no, not really. And yet they love science at school. So what's happening there? It's because people can't see what the job is at the end of it. So what we need to do is show everybody what the jobs are in science so they can see how fulfilling those jobs are, how exciting they are. I worked in science for years, and I have to say I was never bored. I was always excited by it. I was always interested in it. There was always a new challenge. And I think that when you're younger, you don't know that because while science is an exciting subject at school because you do experiments and everything, you can't really see how that translates to what you do when you leave school. So it's really, really important, I think, for girls as well as boys, but girls in particular, to know what it is at the end of their school career that can help them. And the other really important thing is that science is just a great subject to do. If you do science, then you keep all the doors open for you to do any other career at all. If you do a physics A-level, employers and universities are desperate to welcome you in because it's such a difficult A-level, people think, and therefore, if you've done it, then you're seen as someone who's really, really great. So basically, just keeping those doors open is really important. So pursuing a career in science will really give you lots of opportunities later.
Yeah. And do you think that the amount of girls taking science will increase or decrease in the future?
Gosh, I really hope it increases, obviously. And I hope that because you look at all the challenges there are at the moment, whether it's climate change, whether it's the fact there's no ageing population, so there's lots of issues around that, people living longer, things like food security, the renewables, all those sorts of things are areas that we can all get involved in. But imagine being a young girl now, just like you don't have to imagine it, do you? You have to imagine it. Imagine being a young girl now, as you are. You can do anything. How fantastic if you were the girl who came up with some fantastic way of curing cancer or just finding out more about our world. Wouldn't that be fantastic? You can do that with science. And that's why I'm really hoping that the numbers will increase, because young girls will have a better idea about what the opportunities are. So I'm going for increase.
So, just to round off, is there a message you have for girls out there that are thinking about taking science?
Yeah, stop thinking about it, just do it. Just do it. You won't be disappointed.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks very much. Thanks, Amelia.
The majority of sport is male-dominated, and less than 5% of sports journalists are female. We have an interview with Jonathan Ford, Chief Executive of the Football Association of Wales. Do you think women's football is as important as men's, and why?
Oh yes, women's football is as important as men's football. Of course, there's as many women in this world as there are men, so why wouldn't women's football be as important as men's?
And so, if it is as important, why do you think social media coverage is so poor?
Well, football has been around for a long, long time. In fact, probably over 150 years now, and historically it's been a men's sport. In fact, in Wales, we've actually only had a women's national team for the last 25 years. So whilst the men have been playing football for over 150 years, of course the women have been playing a little bit of catch-up much sooner. Now, of course, social media is a very new phenomenon. But still, unfortunately, men's football, because it's so much bigger, because so many more people play it, of course the social media is very much more focused around the men's game than the ladies' game. But I think it may change.
So, do you think football is leading the way for equality? Because we know how hard that football is striving to achieve more women.
Absolutely. I mean, we have many teams that play football, of course, in this country. And I'm pleased to say we've been supporting women's football for many, many years. In fact, women's football is the fastest growing team sport in Wales. Of all sports, women's football is the fastest growing. So we really are. And soon, we're going to be the biggest team sport. The biggest team sport. So think about netball, think about swimming, think about all of those, well, the team sports football soon will actually be the biggest team sport for women as well. So we've grown massively. So that gap slowly will be eroded. But you've got to remember, men's football is up here with the number of people that play, and women's football still got a long way to go to catch up.
So, bearing in mind that, do you think women's football will ever be as big as men's?
Well, I hope so, but I'm not too sure whether it will be in my lifetime or yours. It is growing fast, but there's a lot of other things that are competing for people's attention, and it's a great sport, football. But of course, women also play rugby, they play netball, they do lots of other team activities too. So we've got to compete, and our job, my job, is to make sure that they like playing football, they want to play football, and I hope one day that women's football will be as big as men's.
So, do you think women's and men's games are as hard?
Oh, I think so. I think if I was trying to play against a women's team, I'd struggle massively. But of course, you know, there are some differences, and if you think about some other sports like rugby, it would be very difficult in some circumstances for women to play against men. That's why we only really have, male and female sport up to a particular age, because there is unfortunately a physical difference that sometimes needs to be accepted. And unfortunately that does mean that sometimes, it doesn't mean we can play together, but we do play together in football all the way through until about the age of 16.
Well, do you think that they try as hard on the pitch?
Oh, absolutely they do, yes. You see them coming off the pitch. If you came to any of our matches and you see our women's teams, boy oh boy, they really are run ragged. They make sure they put their heart into it. And that's the thing. Make sure you're doing it for the right reasons. Make sure you're enjoying it and have some fun.
The International Women's Day campaign this year was to pledge for parity. Many large organisations, such as YouTube and major film franchises, have been supporting the action towards global gender equality. Visitors to the International Women's Day website have been encouraged to fill in a pledge for parity, where they give some information about themselves and their reason for supporting the cause. The World Economic Forum has been working with International Women's Day and has created an online countdown that shows the time left until global gender parity, which is estimated to happen in 2133. Until then, the International Women's Day campaign will continue to spread awareness and change the way women worldwide live.
Thank you.
Junior doctors in England are currently protesting about their new contract, which could mean working longer hours for less pay. The junior doctors are coming to the end of their latest 48-hour strike in England. However, the action is not affecting Wales at the moment.
The government say it is expensive to pay doctors overtime on weekends and for unsociable hours, and they would like to include evenings and weekends in ordinary working rotas.
The new contract states that junior doctors will get better training and better pay in the long run. The 55,000 junior doctors in England make up a third of the entire health force. Many people are moving to other countries, such as Canada or Australia, where they will be treated better. The British Medical Association, the BMA, rejected the deal planned by the government, and the decision has been condemned by Prime Minister David Cameron. We had the opportunity to speak to a number of doctors and some sixth formers to ask them their opinions on the subject. Dr. Sadakapan, a GP in a Welsh practice, commented that when she started as a junior doctor, the conditions were worse. They did 72-hour shifts and worked for so long that they were given keys to a small apartment within the hospital.
Dr. Passant, a cancer doctor in Velindre, told us that she sympathises with the junior doctors entirely. She thinks that the new contract is unfair, and making the junior doctors work longer hours will only end in mistakes.
We talked to Salam Youssef, a sixth former currently studying to apply for medicine. She told us her opinions on the strikes and her thoughts on the new contract.
I think now the NHS and medicine as a whole is going through quite a difficult time in terms of funding, and obviously this problem is exacerbated by the problems caused by the junior doctor contracts. But I think it is inevitable that obviously funding would be an issue within the NHS, but I think it's a process that can be solved with the right team of people.
Have the strikes put you off becoming a junior doctor?
Personally, I think I wouldn't say they've put me off being a junior doctor. I think they've definitely opened up my eyes to the kind of challenges and the disadvantages that you could face as a doctor, but I think that they haven't put me off being a junior doctor. I think it is very much a problem that can be solved in the future, and I think that alone shouldn't really put one person off the profession completely.
Saying that it's opened your eyes, did you hear about the conditions beforehand of the strike was working?
Yeah, I mean, before the strikes, I think junior doctors still had a lot of hours to work. They were working on sociable hours already. And I just think the contract is going to make that worse. So I think it was never that, the fact that they're going to have to now start working on sociable hours is not a kind of new thing. I think it's just, it's probably more socially accepted now that they're going to be working unsociable hours, and I think that's the problem.
So what is the future for junior doctors? The next strikes are planned for April the 8th and the 26th. Things aren't improving for junior doctors at the moment.
The new contract could mean tensions between the BMA and the government would increase. Thank you.
The Syrian war has been going on for 4 years now. During this time, many countries close to Syria have been receiving a steady flow of refugees. Last year, the first of the refugees entered Europe. It is estimated that more than 50% of Syria's population has been displaced. Around 76% of refugees are women and children. The families are struggling to survive inside Syria and in the neighbouring countries, as only 12% of all refugees are currently living in formal camps.
Amnesty International says that one such boy is 12-year-old Omar, who arrived in Stockholm after escaping from Syria. He had become separated from his family and was alone and in an unfamiliar city. After many months, his family were located and they were reunited. They had taken grave risks and were often in the hands of smugglers. This is one story with a happy ending, but many are not so lucky.
UNICEF is one of the many organisations in Europe working to help refugees obtain a better future. Zareli spoke earlier to a UNICEF spokesman who explained what they were doing as an organisation.
Yeah, sure. So we're doing quite a lot of things at the moment. We've got an office in Syria, so we've been based there for a number of years now, and we're basically just trying everything we can to help the refugees and the people in Syria. So we've basically been providing water, we're providing food, we've also been providing safe areas for the children, so when they're there we can protect them and give them education and all the things they need to be healthy and grow up and be able to kind of live as best as they can in Syria and the surrounding countries. Yeah, I mean, in terms of the actual evacuation, not so much. I mean, we've just been kind of concentrating in the kind of local area. We've also been, when they are moving from Syria to different countries, we've been helping there as well. So we've got various points along the way, along the routes that most migrants take, that we've been able to kind of set up spaces where people can come and get water, get immunisations, get education and things like that. So we are having kind of various routes along the way, but we're not so much helping people evacuate, no.
We also tracked down a former Howell pupil, Lily Eckersley-Jones, who has been helping to rescue refugees from the sea between Turkey and the Greek island of Lesbos. She told us about her experiences as a volunteer on a rescue boat.
I was involved in a project already that was set up to provide boats to places that need boats to provide rescue cover. And we were approached just before Christmas by somebody who'd been in Greece on the island of Lesbos and had seen that there were lots of people in trouble at sea and no boats to go and help them, pretty much. So we decided that we would ship one of our boats that we had just recently refurbished over and then also go with it in order to train the Greek lifeguards how to use it so that we could leave the boat with them.
Did you take part in a rescue? Can you tell us a bit about it?
I did take part in one. There was one very large wooden boat that crossed the channel between Turkey and Greece. And it had about 200 people on board. And the person who was driving it was clearly not very experienced. So in order to land the boat, which is often the most difficult part of going to sea, we had to help them.
So, from what you saw, did they have any life jackets on? And did they work?
Yes, they were wearing life jackets, but they weren't real life jackets, unfortunately. There's a very disturbing industry that exists on the Turkish side of the channel, where people make life jackets that are fake and fill them with pieces of foam, so they appear to look like normal life jackets, but actually, once they get waterlogged, they'll act as a weight because the foam will suck up so much of the moisture, and they will actually drag people underneath. So they're worse than wearing no life jacket.
Are the boats safe?
Almost all of the boats are not safe. Some of them fall apart as they're crossing. They're given engines to use that are massively underpowered, that are not fit. And to top all that off, they're supposed to be for maybe 10 or 15 people, but often there can be as many as 40 people on an incredibly overcrowded boat. So the whole journey is very dangerous.
Did you ever think that you would be doing something like this when you were at Howell's?
I'd always been very interested in volunteer work from being quite young, but I hadn't expected that I would end up on a lifeboat. I hadn't really been on a boat very much until I was about 18, so no, I didn't expect that it would be taking this form.
So, what do you think will happen in the future? Do you think it will get worse, or do you think it will slowly get better?
The refugee crisis will continue to be just as bad for quite a while, because there's I believe, 40% of the population of Syria has been displaced because of the war going on there. So already people can't go back to their homes. So in terms of Lesbos specifically, people are going to keep coming. And yeah, I think without some kind of plan put in action by the European Union to handle that many people, it's going to continue to be very difficult, and people will continue to drown.
The Zika virus is travelling fast. Since 2007, there have been several outbreaks in the Pacific, and since 2015, it has spread to America. Approximately 100 Americans have been diagnosed with this deadly disease after returning from affected countries. The Zika has been considered an emerging infectious virus with the ability to infect new places where the Aedes mosquito vector is present. However, there is still hope. The scientists who helped develop the Ebola vaccine are now trying to do the same for the Zika virus. Dr. Anthony Fauci, director of the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases, says they aim to start testing a vaccination by this September in America. However, this is predicted to be a lengthy process.
The Olympics 2016 are taking place in Rio de Janeiro, a huge seaside city in Brazil. Brazil has been a hotspot for the Zika virus. Will this discourage the public from attending this world-famous sporting event?
Over to Rukmini, who is our BBC correspondent in the Howell's Department of Sport.
We've come to see Mrs. Mills, the Acting Director of Sport in Howell School, whose daughter Hannah Mills was a silver medalist in the London 2012 Olympics. Is your daughter taking part in the 2016 Olympics in Rio?
She is. She was one of the first people that was selected.
And is she concerned about the Zika virus?
Yeah, I haven't asked her, but I expect that she is. But I expect that the Royal Yachting Association will have given them lots of advice how to be careful.
Are you concerned, and why?
I'm concerned, yes, because I think anybody should be concerned about people going to countries where there's an outbreak of anything. But I'm also going, and I think it'll be absolutely fine because it's the winter in Brazil, so there won't be as many mosquitoes, and we will take precautions so that we keep ourselves covered up, and we will try not to go anywhere where there are likely to be mosquitoes, because they're in like sort of manky looking puddles, aren't they, and sort of manky water areas, and I don't think we'll be anywhere near that, so I think it'll be fine.
What do you think is going to happen to the Olympics?
I think that it might well cut the number of spectators, because those people that are thinking of having a family, or those people that are already pregnant and their partners won't now want to go, so that it could easily cut the numbers of spectators.
The big question Britain is facing today is, should we stay in the European Union? In 1957, the Treaty of Rome was signed and 6 countries formed the European Union.
Now, the EU has grown to a community of 28 member countries.
So, should we leave the EU? The referendum will take place on Thursday, the 23rd of June, and will give the chance for British, Irish and Commonwealth citizens over 18 to vote for their future. The last referendum took place in 1975, just after we joined the EU, and we voted to stay. However, many argue that the EU has changed significantly in the past 40 years and that the referendum is the best way to decide.
David Cameron has stated that he wants the UK to stay in the EU, now that he has negotiated with them.
Some of Britain's biggest trading partners are in the EU, making buying and selling easier. It has also never been easier to travel, study and work in the EU countries. People also argue that Britain might lose its status and image if we leave.
Do you think we should stay in the EU and why?
I don't think we should stay in the EU, and one of the main reasons would be that we can't make any decisions on our own without going to the EU.
Thank you. Do you think we should stay in the EU and why?
Yes, I do think we should stay in the EU because it's in our economic interest to do so.
Do you think we should stay in the EU and why?
No, I don't think we should stay in the EU. I think they got too much power to control our country, so I think we should get out.
Do you think we should stay in the EU and why?
I think that we should stay in the EU because it's about having community, and I think that it will take away something really precious that connects lots of countries in Europe.
The refugee crisis has raised concerns about British border control. If we remain in the EU, all other members will be free to enter our country under the Schengen Agreement. We could also save a lot of money as we would no longer have to pay a membership fee. It will still be possible to work and study in other countries, as you can do so in many countries which are not currently in the EU.
On the 12th of February 2016, Bristol Zoo welcomed a new addition to the gorilla family. Leather Kira showed symptoms of life-threatening pre-eclampsia. The vets made a choice to perform an emergency caesarean on Kira and deliver the baby safely.
When the baby was born, she needed help breathing independently. The baby is now doing great though, and is being cared for around the clock by a team of experienced zookeepers. Kira is also being monitored closely and is recovering well. This is one of the first caesareans to be performed on a gorilla, and it's the first time a caesarean has been performed on an animal at Bristol Zoo. John Partridge, the senior curator of animals, explains how significant this event was.
John Partridge quoted, "Having been involved with the care of these gorillas over the years, some with trepidation and excitement, we were invited to the zoo to assess the well-being of Kira because she was late in pregnancy and showed some signs of being unwell.
Following our assessment, we considered that Kira might have a condition that humans get, preeclampsia, and that the only way to treat it was by delivery. We also thought that the baby in her uterus was showing signs of being very unwell and in need of delivery. My colleague from St Michael's Hospital, Dr. Amna Ali, and I prepared for this extraordinary caesarean section and delivered the little girl gorilla.
This is probably one of the biggest achievements of my life, and something I will certainly never forget. I have since been back to visit Kira and the baby gorilla. It was amazing.
What do you think about the baby gorilla being born by a caesarean at Bristol Zoo?
Well, I think it's fantastic. Any little bit of life that comes, especially with little animals like that. The only problem I have is that I'm not a great believer in zoos. I'm not sure that keeping an animal in captivity, whether it's for to protect the animal or not, is a good idea.
I think it's cool because baby gorillas are cute and they would attract people visiting the zoo.
I think it's pretty amazing for a gorilla to be born by caesarean. The fact that they've used a human midwife to make this happen is pretty great.